So you remember about a month ago when China and Russia came out and jointly made a statement saying that they are going to make all trade transactions in a new yuan to ruble conversion in order to unseat dollar hegemony. And the collective dollar doomer world and Fox News and the crypto bros all came out and said, see, it signifies the end of the US dollar. And I was like, that's complete horseshit. It doesn't signify anything. This is a huge nothing burger, and eventually both of those countries are going to have to convert whatever trade they have into US dollars to do meaningful trade with the rest of the world. Well, guess who was fucking right? Because it was me. Although China and Russia have been really pushing their companies to settle their trade in yuan to rubles, it's really much harder to end dollar hegemony than they thought. Moscow has so far avoided keeping the yuan because they flat out say it's a drag on the market. In a recently published report from the Bank of Russia, the central bank of Russia, they explain that Russian exporters and importers are suffering from currency risks when they settle their trade in non-convertible and, quote, volatile yuan. That's their quote in their report. It also says there's not enough currency derivatives for traders to hedge the Chinese currency, making it more volatile. The Russian central bank says they have been selling yuan since the beginning of the year rather than holding it for trade because of this volatility. In fact, on April 10th, they sold $46 million worth of yuan in exchange for Western currency. When reporters asked Dmitry Tulin, who is the first deputy governor of the Bank of Russia, why Russia had dumped the yuan in February, March, and April, he blamed Beijing for refusing to allow companies and individuals to hold yuan in cash. You see, in order to be a reserve currency, you have to allow your currency to freely move about the world. China doesn't let that happen. China hugely restricts what you can do with their currency. In fact, you can't really spend their currency outside of exchanges and trade unless you are in China or Hong Kong or some other country within the immediate bubble control of China. So although the yuan has become the leading transaction currency on the Moscow exchange, and China is now Russia's biggest trading partner, the Chinese central bank doesn't want the yuan to be circulated overseas in trading outside of trade with China and Russia. He said that Russia, this is Dmitry Tulin saying that Russia had held high hopes of being able to get yuan notes as a substitute of all the dollars and euros, but such hopes quickly vanished. He said because of this, there's no room for the Russian central bank to ease these existing rules in which individuals can't withdraw more than $10,000 worth of foreign currencies from bank accounts. This is because Russia needs these foreign currencies for overarching trade. The yuan is just not working for them. He notes that the Russian National Wealth Fund, which is a sovereign fund that vowed to convert 60% of its foreign reserves to yuan within the next few years, has actually reduced its holdings of yuan in recent months and is holding under 20 billion yuan currently, which is not a whole lot when you're talking about a reserve currency. The reality is Russia needs US dollars that are under sanction. They need euros that are under sanction. So what are they doing? They agreed to some sort of Yuan-Ruble transaction so that the yuan can be traded itself for Western currencies, because the yuan is not technically under sanction. The ruble has experienced gradual decline since December, dropping by 27% against the dollar. And Russians have actually been lining up in banks. You've seen the bank lines for foreign currencies because they're more stable and they're able to use them in greater amounts of trade. Now this report, and Mr. Tulin said that Russia is struggling to make payments in anything that is not US dollars and euro. So what they're saying is although friendly currencies have grown within the country because of sanctions, and exporters and importers are trying to use those foreign currencies, they face currency risks. And it highlights complications of selling or trying to settle trade globally in a local currency when the US dollar is the only anything anyone ever takes. Russia still needs to obtain enough currencies of unfriendly states. This is from the report. And what he means is dollars and euros to buy foreign goods, because outside of China, no one wants yuan. Outside of Russia, no one wants rubles. Not even Chinese companies want rubles. So they're finding it hard because there's a massive trade imbalance, and therefore The yuan will never be a reserve currency. It's too controlled. Nobody wants it. Even the so-called enemies or belligerents of the United States need dollars, whether they like it or not. And yet again, I was right. This is coming from the Russian central bank. You can't really say it's propaganda when it's coming from them. It's just the way it is. I also want to mention that when you see people talking about the dollar going to zero, there's a couple things going on there. Either one, they have a fundamental misunderstanding on how ingrained the dollar is in the global economy via dollar-denominated debt and how this global trade stability works. Or two, they're trying to sell you something such as buying more gold, buying more crypto. Or three, they're trying to sell you on the fear that the US is collapsing, the fear that there's something wrong, and often there's a political reason behind that. So obviously Russia wants to see the US struggle. So when they sow fear within the US, there's this fear and disdain and dissent for what is going on with the White House, blaming them for the loss of dollar hegemony, when the reality is that's not true. These are articles that are being written and pushed to the media, and those with a political agenda that runs counter to Biden lap it up, which is why you see most of this dollar doomer talk on Fox News. It's absolutely untrue. I don't know why they continue to post this bullshit. Honestly, I don't know why anyone watches any mainstream media, frankly, but Fox News let alone. So the reality is the dollar's not going anywhere. And anyone who is telling you that it is either is trying to sell you something, doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, or is pushing Russian/Chinese propaganda. And that's the bottom line.